Hi, good morning, Raven. How are you this morning?
Hi, Renee. I'm fine. How are you?
I am pretty okay. So usually I really do start or want to start answering this question when I start off some of these videos. So how's your soul and spirit today?
Oh, what a time to ask me that question. um, my spirit has returned to my body. My soul is still a bit restless,
Mhm.
but overall, there's some unison.
Okay, good, good. So we're gonna have a discussion around trans issues and women's issues today.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to start off with you telling me your name, asking you to tell me your name um, and your pronouns.
So my name is Raven Gill. I'm 29. My pronouns are
Can't be
she, her.
29. You don't look a day over 21.
Oh, thank you. That's the moisturizer. The moisturizer.
And you were going to say your pronouns?
My pronouns are she, her, hers, and
You can say that out loud here. It's fine.
okay, I'm bitch.
All right.
Bitch. My preferred pronoun is bitch. Yes.
And work-wise, what do you do at present?
I am a trans activist advocate, but I before that I was doing cosmetology, so hair, makeup, and nails. There's no hair right now. It's just my beautiful turban. But yes, currently I am a trans advocate and I have my own organization. It's called Butterfly Trans Barbados. It's the currently the only trans registered trans organization in Barbados. And we focus on, am I jumping ahead?
No, go ahead. Tell me. That's why I asked what are you doing work-wise?
Right. It focuses primarily on trans-related inequalities such as gender marker recognition, gender identity recognition, the lack of access to employment, lack of access to comprehensive health care, working on policy and legislative reform with the powers that be, locally and regionally, as well as overall education to the non-LGBT community about trans issues specifically. So trans men, trans women, trans youth. So yes.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. And actually, that perfectly segues into my next question. What are some of your experiences navigating? I'm going to break it down in two questions. Navigated
Mhm.
first the LGBT space as a LGBT plus space as a trans woman or a trans person.
Going to be very honest here. I know you love honesty.
Please be honest.
The
Straight up honest.
navigating the LGBT community as a trans woman, a visible trans woman, is difficult sometimes and tolerable others. So when I say difficult, like sometimes you find some gay men have an issue with trans women. Some lesbians have an issue with trans women, trans persons in general. Specifically, Barbados has more trans women presenting than trans men, and the the reception to us is not always well received, not always as kind as you would think, considering that we are a part of the wider LGBT community. Also faces the wider community also faces a lot of backlash, a lot of plight, mistreatment, you name it. But within the community, we experience definitely some discrimination from our own kin. So yes.
And before I go
Um,
into asking about the heterosexual space, you are saying actually presenting, and I want you to just quickly explain what a presenting trans woman is or passing trans woman is, as opposed to person that may not be identify as trans but may not be, as I say, passing or presenting.
Right. So, passing or presenting as a woman, a trans woman, is for me when I go in public. I'm always seen as a woman. Um, Rarely, if ever, identified as a man, unless the ignorant person would have known me from before, or somebody knows that I'm trans, I would go to disrespect me. But presenting is when you leave home, go to the supermarket, they see woman, you leave home as a woman. Um, and being passable is when nobody can tell that you're trans. They just see a woman. I would go to bars and guys would see me and hit on me and see me as a beautiful dark skinned black woman and offer me a drink or want to go on a date with me. So that's passing. Passing means that you are not identified as your previous gender.
Okay, right. So now the next question I had from before was the experience of navigating heterosexual spaces.
Well, again, for me, navigating heterosexual spaces isn't challenging. I'm very confident. I'm 6 foot tall. You can't miss me. Very slim, very model-esque. But
Okay,
yeah,
man.
navigating heterosexual spaces is not uncomfortable for me. Again, I'm a proud trans woman, so if people know I'm trans, it's fine. I don't usually get any disrespect. And even if they don't know that I'm trans, they just see a woman and, like you said, just friendly or flirting, or it's not to the point where it's heckling, like people calling me a man or chasing me out of the space where I am. So navigating heterosexual spaces as a passable trans woman is fine for me. Like I fly under the radar a lot of times,
Right. So
and
you
yeah,
are actually saying, as for you as a possible, what are some of
yeah.
the scenarios that would happen that from working with other trans people can happen, especially if they are not in this, realm of possible?
Right. So again, passing privilege is another way that we refer to passing. Passing privilege comes from a lot of resources or a lot of things that other trans women or trans women specifically may not have access to. So I don't have a beard. I don't have any facial hair, and that's due to laser treatment. So
Yeah.
like I don't have to shave my face. I don't have a mustache or anything. So I can go out like this without a wig or makeup or anything and still would find a man to be attracted to me. Um, for those persons who aren't passable, who may not have breasts visible, even if it's a very slight bit of cleavage, they don't have any of that, it can tend to be problematic or risky for those persons navigating those spaces, as they would be seen as odd, awkward. In the Bayesian context, they would be called a buller. So you would get that slur thrown at you. So for persons that don't have the luxury of passing, because being realistic, passing is a luxury. Because I can do it, I navigate. I don't have any problems. I don't generally have a fear for my safety. Other persons who aren't passable will have some fear, won't be as confident, will be very jittery, and it may be noticeable that they're awkward or fidgety. So that has caused problems for some persons being stoned or stabbed or robbed or assaulted in various ways. Those persons who aren't passable to align with the binary gender that they identify as or they see themselves as or would like persons to see them as.
Okay, so you are right now we had a recent, and this is not per se focusing on the J.K. Rowling situation, but we recently had a lot of conversation coming out of that, the persons making certain comments. So what are some of the, I'm going to start with what are some of the questions that persons usually ask that are off-putting or offensive to persons of your community?
Ooh,
What are some of the key ones? So I know there's a
there's
long list, so
so
let's break
many.
it down and for our audience, just a shorter list of the few top things.
Okay, so they usually ask about your genitals or other body parts. So it's like, oh my God, and this is scenario one. Oh my God, somebody told me you're a man. How did you get breasts? And they come to touch. Are they real? Or very stupid questions like, why is your hair so long? My hair is like here. Why is your hair so long? Like, everybody's hair doesn't grow. Or but if you're a man, why do you sound like this? You don't sound like a man. Or the biggest one for trans women, do you still have a penis?
Yeah.
And it's very awkward is the least thing that I could say to describe the feeling when people ask those intrusive questions. But it's also a instant fear trigger. Like they're saying these things to you and they're not talking soft normally. So other persons in the vicinity may hear these questions and be inclined to become violent, which has happened to a lot of community members before.
And you actually, because we know each other through some of the work we do, you've actually had a situation where a person harassed you in the street and you had to take this became a police matter, and also to then what happened in the police situation also was something that then had to go to police complaints authority. If you're comfortable, do you want to share a little bit about that incident and how this is something that community-wise may happen?
Well, there are two instances. So one was a couple of years ago, I was in town walking, going back home from the bus terminal. I went with my friends walking to the bus terminal, and there was this group of guys and girls walking. So they were walking like 20 feet behind me, so they could see me, they could see my silhouette. And the boys from behind were saying, "Oh, look at she's really attractive, sexy, whatever," and kept calling at me to stop so they could come and talk to me. So then one of the boys realized who it was. He lives in my area, and he said, "Oh, that's a man." So what happened was the other boys that were calling out to me couldn't believe it. So some of them started to look for bottles and rocks and whatever, and they ran behind me to attack. And at the time, I had pepper spray. One of my friends had brought back for me from overseas, and when two of them got close, I blasted them with the pepper spray. The third one, he was a bit more tricky to catch. So when he was running behind me, I dead stopped and turned around and sprayed at him. So at the same time it caught him, he threw the bottle at the same time. So the bottle hit me in my face. So I have a scar right here, and it cut into my hairline. So the hair around like the front of my hair right here does not grow. Like it's kind of patchy because I had to cut so much of my hair. So yeah, that's one. When I went to the police took a week to find the boy, and the boy literally lives 5 minutes walk from my house. And I had to keep going to the police station and being a bitch. It was like, why is it taking you so long to catch this boy? He lives here, and I told him the times that he leaves home, comes back home, and it took them a week to get him to question him. And to this day, he's not been charged or anything. When I went to the police station to inquire about it, they lost my file, my complaint. And that's one instance. The other one was I was walking in town, going to the salon to get my hair done, and it was around my birthday, and this guy started to harass me, whatever. And he was like close enough for me that I could stretch out my hand and hit him. So he said it and he ran off. So the next couple of days, I saw him again, and he started up. So I engaged in an argument with him, and then the police came and broke up the argument. So he started to resist and carry on and fight that with the police. So the police arrested him. And then when I was walking, going along, one of the police officers stopped me and asked me for my name. And I told him he didn't believe me that my name was Raven. I wanted ID. I said no. And I told him, if you don't think that's my name, you can call this particular police officer who I would have dealt with for the same instance where before, when the guys had hit me in my face and they lost my file. This officer is a superior officer, high ranking officer. So she would have helped me with that incident. So when I called her name, the officer started to shake in his boots. And he was like, okay, it will just come to the station and give a report about the boy harassing you. I did, got into the vehicle myself, no handcuffs, no anything, and went to the station. And upon giving my report, or trying to give my report about the boy harassing me and threatening me, they had already started to process the boy, charging him. And then one of the station sergeants came out and said, "Oh, we're charging you as well for disturbing peace." I was like, that's not the preface that I came here on, that y'all told me to come and make a report against the boy harassing me. So why is it now that I'm being charged with disturbing the peace? So it was a long process. They ended up putting me in a holding cell for 24 hours, and then I went to court the next morning. And it was a very traumatic ordeal because my wand looking like this, and I had my was put into the cell. Like it was the boy that had harassed me, the two arresting officers and the custodian of the cells in the police station. I had to strip down naked in front of all of them. So, and they wanted me to squat and cough twice when they made the boy do it once, and they wanted me to completely take off. They said, "We need to see your nipples." So no female officer obviously seen me. So when I came to the cells, the custodian asked, "Why are you bringing this girl into the male cells?" And one of the arresting officers was like, "That's a man." And the other officer of the cells, in charge of the cells, was like completely petrified. He did not know what to do, and he kept saying, "I am not sure, I'm not sure." And they just said, "Just strip." So
actually, I'm gonna ask you to pause there and answer your question along the lines like, so we have a number of institutions, like police, obviously, and I'm gonna say police, which has holding cells and prisons, and then you have hospitals and psychiatric hospital as well, including those hospitals, and probably one or two other healthcare type services. Navigating that space has to be, on some levels, very difficult because for me, in my own experience, the Caribbean is very much, you're either going in as you're biological male, biological female, and there's no space to navigate for trans persons. So I know we were just talking about the police situation, but it has me wanting to ask, what is also like navigating any of these public services? And this is also to even going to a doctor for trans, as a trans person, for care.
Navigating any other space outside of your comfort or comfortable spaces, your safe spaces, is hell. Going to the doctor, and you're going there for the first time, and you have to get physical, and they see you presenting female, and you have to explain to them, "Well, I'm trans." It's a whole big shock. So sometimes some of them would have been aware of it from social media, the internet, depending on if they trained overseas, they may have heard of it. But having a one-on-one person interaction with a lot of doctors here or any other place is awful. There's no comprehensive healthcare for trans women or men in Barbados. It's usually word of mouth. Like I would tell another girl, "We'll take this, and we'll get boobs in a couple months or a year." take this, whatever. Navigating these other spaces are it can be degrading. Like, you feel like less than a person or less than human because they're going to ask probing questions. How did you get breast? Do you still have a penis? The same rude questions. Why would you want to do something like that? God created you perfect and you want to think and you're an abomination if the person is Christian and we know Barbados is full of these I don't want to say heretics, but we know Barbados is full of these hypocrites. So bringing God into the mix or the questioning is always a point of fear mongering that they do, or you're abomination, you're going to hell. So you have to anticipate the level of discrimination that you're going to receive when you're in these places. If you go to the police for something, you want help, when they realize or you tell them that you're a trans, they have no interest in helping you anymore. It's all about ridicule or trying to get you out of the station so you don't lodge your complaint. If you go to the bank and you're presenting ID, because you can change your name in Barbados legally from Bob to Susan. You can take pictures with your boobs showing inappropriate clothing like this, cleavage and whatever, so you can see the feminine appearance, but the gender marker is still the biological. You were born as male. So then it becomes a point of scrutiny, especially if you're using your Barbados ID card where it has big and bold text male, as opposed to your license that has gender is just the letter M or F. So usually because of my ID card, sorry, but because of my license, because I only use my license or passport, the gender marker is in a very obscure place as opposed to my big and bold picture and my name. So for me, again, being passable is usually overlooked. But for other persons who may have not had the luxury of changing their name or feminizing their outward appearance, it's hard. It's unnerving. It actually makes people not navigate society normally because of all these challenges that they face.
Yeah. So there's a conversation as well. This is going back a little bit to the J.K. Rowling thing too that came out of there, where and we've been hearing this conversation in gender circles that trans women aren't women or trans men aren't real men. What are your I saw the eyes. What are your comments on people making statements like that? And we even sometimes hear this coming from persons in gender circles or LGBT circles as well that are part of our allyship and communities.
Yes, and this is a point of contention for me and a lot of activists who I am in circles or realms with, to the point where I've made it very clear for some of these activists, some of these feminists, some of these women leaders, I have no interest in fucking working with you anymore because of your ignorance. So to the statements of trans women aren't real women, trans men aren't real men, let's stick with trans women for now. So I'm a trans woman, identified as a woman. I present woman. You don't automatically see genitals when you go to the bank, to the beach. You don't automatically see genitals when you're in the supermarket. Anywhere in public settings, you find somebody attractive and you're attracted to what you're attracted to. Men are attracted to women, women are attracted to women, men are attracted to men, whatever the case may be. So if a straight man sees me as attracted to me, he sees a woman. He being straight identified all his life is attracted to a woman. Me. Okay. So you're saying that trans women aren't real women because they don't have vaginas. Trans women aren't real women, period. Trans women aren't real women because they can't give birth. Okay, there are genetically born women that also can't give birth, don't get periods, and are still women. So you're saying that trans women aren't real women based on those statements, based on genetics, based on body parts, is a very inferior statement when it is put against women in general. Because then you're saying that those women born with vaginas aren't women either because they can't do what the Lord said women must be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
Again, there are trans women who get surgery. So they remove their penis and have a vagina. So you're saying only women with vaginas are women. So that means trans women with vaginas are women. But in the same breath, you're saying women that can't give birth aren't real women. It then goes back to the genetically born women that can't do those things as well. So the problem for me is the outdated thinking and the outdated references to body parts, making you complete, making you a person, making you worth love, respect, care, rights, whatever. It's very, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And the same trans men who are saying, oh, well, men don't get periods, men don't have vaginas, men have beards. There's some men that don't have any facial hair at all, so you're saying that he's not a man. There are some men that don't have a penis because it's been removed due to whatever surgery is necessary to keep them alive. These people aren't men because they don't have their parts. So again, equating a person being a person or complete because of their parts is very outdated. Is downright discriminatory. Is very stupid because if a man, if you put me in a bar, me looking like how I look when I doll up, I look like having half of the women sitting at the bar next to me. And
Okay, ma'am.
this is no, this is not being shady to women or whatever, but you've experienced it. You see how men react to me. So if you're saying that women aren't supposed to, men aren't supposed to be attracted to trans women because they aren't real women, when you're sitting in a space of all women and the man cannot tell he's seeing a woman, where you're scrutinizing him because he's attracted to me and not you. He saw a woman. He didn't
Yeah.
see anything else. I don't have a beard. I don't sound like a man.
Right. Actually, I want to ask you about, there is this idea as well from people saying, well, you're either tricking people or you should disclose when you meet people. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so for me personally, I don't like the idea of disclosing. Disclosing is for that person's peace of mind. Let me give you an example. I am not going to disclose to a man, hi, my name is Raven. I had appendicitis surgery when I was 15. I'm allergic to pineapples. I
Eat vegetables.
I don't eat vegetables, like all these things that aren't necessary on a first interaction or 10th interaction. Okay, the man's not going to tell me, hi, my name is Bruce. I have 3 children. I have a wife, an outside woman, and I want to have sex with you as well. By the
Some
way,
may. Some may.
by the way, I have 3 STDs and I don't want to get them treated. I know that they're there, blah, blah, blah. Like, disclosure is for, to me, disclosure is a touchy subject. But for me, I don't disclose that I'm trans unless I'm going to have sex with you. And at that point, me disclosing that I'm going to have sex with you would be me knowing that you're interested enough in that particularly. It's not a point
Understood.
of trickery. It's not a point of witchcraft. whatever, like, there's nothing to trick, because there are men that are trans attracted. Specifically, there are men that are seeking out trans women. They don't want women with vaginas. If you're pre-op, you have a penis still. If you're post, you have a vagina. So there's some men that want strictly post, aka vaginas, strictly pre, aka penis. Plain and simple. There's some men that don't even care about the physical, having breasts and having the other surgeries and whatever. There are some men, as long as you identify as a woman, a trans woman, they're completely fine with it, and they're going to be with you because you see yourself as a woman, and they're going to respect you as a woman. End of story. So there's no trickery, there's no whatever. But for me, I personally don't go to a bar and sit down, and I'm referencing a bar a lot because I like to have a beverage. But I'm not going to a bar when a man sends me a drink from the bartender, brings a drink to me and said, the guy in the bar sent this to you. I look over and say, thanks. I'm not telling the bartender to say, oh, by the way, you should tell him that I'm trans. That don't make sense.
Okay. But you know that this is a conversation going on. Like, if you know, you're supposed to leave your house with a placard saying all this information on it.
Or maybe or people think that I should leave home with a bandana saying, I am trans.
Yeah.
See below for definition, and the definition is right here.
Yeah. Totally understand. So in Barbadian society, what are some of the things you see conversation-wise needed to happen to move this forward? Because I actually gonna backtrack. So we see yourself as a trans woman running an organization. I think we have a history of seeing trans persons as persons doing survival sex work, or persons that are in drag. What are the differences, and what are some of the nuances for this?
So education is key. So transvestites was a word used in Barbados around the world. Transvestites refer to men who cross-dress. So transvestite is the outdated word, don't use it. And drag queens would have been considered transvestite. So they're men in the day and they dress up at night as women, sometimes to do sex work, sometimes to perform the arts, whatever the case may be. But in Barbados specifically, drag queens are known in certain areas as sex workers. However, there are some trans female sex workers, and they are in the same area as the cross-dressing sex workers. Survival sex work means that a person is selling their body for money, for goods, for services, to survive, because they cannot be employed by traditional means. So they won't be given the opportunity to work at a gas station or a supermarket.
And you mentioned before that you also work with persons, the issues around work. So now you're saying that, please add in for me, like, what are some of the issues for trans persons actually getting into the workforce in Barbados?
Right. So I work with sex workers. I work with migrants. I work with persons who've been in prison. And again, if you've been in prison, they're not going to give you a job because you're a criminal for the rest of your life in society's eyes. Another stigma that is put on the community is that we're all full of HIV, so they don't want you in their place to sneeze or breathe and give them HIV as well. Some of the trans community aren't as educated, so not literate enough, so they won't be given a job where they can't read or write to do a lot of basic things, or even fill out the application for themselves. So education is definitely needed to get past these barriers, because as well as we can't get access to jobs normally because of legislation. There's no protection laws for LGBT people. for hiring trans persons so that they won't be discriminated against, or they won't be paid less than the average person because of their identity. Um, so there's a lot of education that needs to be done for sure around getting rid of the stigmas, getting rid of the discrimination, and giving the trans community opportunity to work and survive and get out of the narrative that we're all sex workers, we're all full of HIV. Because again, some of these things come from around the world because of statistics of bigger organizations or conglomerates that do funding to help these communities that are impoverished in other regions around the world. However, Latin America and the Caribbean is always usually lumped together, and the numbers from Latin America doesn't translate to the Caribbean because we are a smaller territory compared to the amounts of trans persons captured in Latin America. So again, it's hard, but education definitely is at the forefront of everything.
Yeah, I think, you know, we both know in the different Caribbean islands, because there's also a big difference between what's going on in the northern Caribbean, where you have the bigger islands and also the Spanish-speaking countries, compared to the Anglo-Caribbean, where we are smaller territories, especially in the Eastern Caribbean, smaller territories, smaller numbers. We you know, making that special effort to collect data that speaks to each of our territories instead of being this big lump. As much as it's beneficial to be, you know, Caribbean, there are times we have to actually segment that data and look at it piece by piece to make sure that we have accuracy of what's going on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We, in the Caribbean, would say, and I want to go back because you used the word something in earlier when we were talking about the experiences navigating LGBT space, and you used tolerance. What are your views right now on like things like tolerance and this idea of kumbaya if you just hold your lane, basically?
So when I used tolerance before, it wasn't regarding persons tolerating the community. It was the community tolerating things that we have to endure because we can't do any better currently. Are there not provisions in place that we could make noise for the injustices and get instant results? So we have to tolerate certain things, certain laws that impede our life, our progression, our existence. I don't believe in tolerance when it comes to the LGBT trans specific context. Tolerate your boss, tolerate your annoying children, tolerate your parents, but you're gonna respect the trans community. You're gonna respect the LGBT community, but you're gonna respect trans people. Acceptance, respect. And if you don't want to accept it, just respect it. I accept that there are some persons that I will never be friends with, that I work in the same activism realm with. However, I will respect them as a person over there, and I respect the work they're doing over there, but we're not going to, no.
Yeah.
I
think when we tell
work.
people respect, they get confused and feel that I need you to come and praise me. I just need you to.
I don't need you to agree with me either.
Yeah. We just need
to agree to disagree. But you're going to respect me as a person, me as an individual, me doing what is best for my community. And I'm going to respect what you're doing for your community is the same. But don't tolerate me because you want it to look good for funders, you want it to look good for the other are on my side, for lack of better words, so you're not seen as the outcast. No, keep the same energy all the time. I don't want the fake acceptance, the fake tolerance. Again, tolerate that you got a big war on your nose and you can't do nothing about it. Accept, respect me. And the story.
I also want to ask.
Just say then.
Yeah, I want to ask also too, what is the issue when we are in the community and we lump the G and the T together, especially if we're doing it for research or group projects, or just in general, we always think, so you say T because we know when we say T, we are mostly focusing on trans women, as there's not a lot of visible trans men in our communities, at least documented wise.
Can I curse?
Please do, respectfully.
This wrestle that the funders and donors got about lumping MSMs, aka gay men, with TG women, trans women, is a bunch of cunt. Because at the end of the day, you're putting money, let's say a US or UK organization or funder is putting money into the government's hands of Barbados. For example, the Ministry of Health. So then we are given the money to work with CSOs, nonprofit organizations, like my organization, to work with.
Right, CSOs is civil service organization.
Yes,
right.
Civil service organizations to work with the government, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Labor, and you're capturing information about gay men, MSMs, and you want information on TG women, trans women. It's two different demographics, two different target audiences. Why are you lumping MSMs, gay men, with trans women? Why? Because you're still viewing trans women with their binary parts from birth. So trans women going lumping with gay men. So then there's no qualitative data or quantitative data on TG women existing in Barbados because we don't want to do the work, so we can just call all of them men because they're born as men. That's a bunch of shit. And that's why the trans community always gets zero to little funding, or you have to partner with the same MSMs and still give the same data for it to be squandered into the MSM category. That is a bunch of garbage, and it is very counterproductive. It sends the community back decades, because when somebody else comes from the EU and wants to give money for research purposes or to fund policy or legislative reform, they're going to say, okay, well, we know they have MSMs, we know they have gay men. What about trans women? You go and check the ministries or the government's archives or the government's records, research. There's no trans women. Why? Because you've done us a disservice and put us in with the gay men.
Yeah. And also, too, I want to add into I want to add into my experience of actually doing some research work, is that once you put that MSM title across there, some trans women may go ahead and say, all right, I will do it because they know you or they know the community, but they do not identify it. It could be traumatizing for trans women as well. As what you said, you're saying that you view me as this thing, which I am not. And that information is lumped together in that report as an MSM report, not standing alone for the trans issues that are distinctly trans issues.
It devalidates your existence, your journey as a trans woman, as an individual. So then when they say, okay, well, again, we've known from working in this realm, Latin America, their trans population is leaps and bounds higher.
Conversation with me, I know I'm a little bit biased because I am a trans ally, so I'm not going to come at you arguing.
Thank you for your allyship. We thank you for always standing up for us, but not speaking for us.
Before we go, that's very important. Is that important?
Someone who does not live the experience, know the experience in depth, cannot speak for it. I cannot speak to being a white gay man. I cannot speak to being a white trans woman. I can speak to being a black woman, a black trans woman. I can speak depending on your awareness of self. I can speak to being a gay boy before I transition to a trans woman. I have that spectrum. I identify that I was before and I'm completely fine with it now. But a gay man will never be able to experience, unless he is transitioned, a gay man will never be able to completely and competently represent the trans community and speak on injustices that we face, things that we need. They will never be able to understand the micro and macro aggressions that we face, the different levels of stigma and discrimination, because the T is always left off of the LGBT. It's usually LGB funding, LGB whatever. It's really trans funding, and if it is, it's not a lot, and it's not to do things that we need. They want to give us HIV medication. We don't need it. There's enough HIV cure here that we can access comfortably. We need hormones. We need access to mental health professionals. And my organization has done a workshop with mental health professionals, just a small plug. But yes, so it's okay for gay men to be allies for us. And definitely you are being discriminatory to trans.
I want you to repeat that because it froze a second, so just go back and repeat. It's okay for gay men to be allies and then continue from there.
Oh, I was saying it's okay for gay men to be allies for us and stand up for us and say you're being discriminatory or disrespectful to trans women, but that's it. Then say, I have a trans woman here that can speak to the injustices, the experience, the things that need to be registered for their community as their lived experience. And not only experience, but their knowledge. That's something that a gay man can never do for us.
For me, in those circles, and if I ever have to speak on it, I can share data. I can share a documented situation. But when it comes down to really telling your story, the best person to tell your story is the person that lived that story. And that's how I go about it.
They do not collide. Because again, if a person is to understand, gay men do not find trans women attractive to be in relationships with, not sexually. You will not, it is rare, it may happen, but generally, trans women are not with gay identified men. Trans women are with heterosexual men, heterosexual identified men, or even a bisexual man. They are not with gay men. Gay men like flat chests and beards.
What's the term in Barbados? Beard and shorts or something like that?
Sorry?
What's the term that y'all use? Beard and short. What is it? Please share.
Pants and shirt bullers.
Okay, we should laugh at these slang terms, but then we have slang terms.
We have our own slang and words that we use. Like again, the word tranny is offensive to a lot of the community, the trans community, but it's not offensive to me. So when I'm talking to some of my other friends, close friends, I was like, tranny, this thing is tranny. Or like when I'm talking to some of my gay friends, gay males, it's like, oh, I'm saying not mini bullers, not mini pants and shirt bullers. It's things that were used to be degrading to us, offensive to us, that we've reclaimed. Just like how some people reclaim nigga, and some people are still a bit iffy about that word. I live in the trans community. I can say tranny. If it offends you, don't watch me. But I'm saying this because I'm a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there's always so much to talk about, but we're gonna wrap here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, Miss Gill, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure sitting down and having a conversation. And till we do this again.
Yes. Very soon.